Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Talking Triathlon, where you heard it. We talk about triathlon. My name is Tim Ford. I am talking triathlon with James Bale. Jimbo, mate, how you going?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good. I'm enjoying a week's holiday in France at the moment. I've taken time off all of my business interests and I'm just chilling out in France, training and eating well, wandering around. Did a 15K run today. Enjoyed it. Not
How's the
bad for a
hip?
Tuesday.
Let's
Yeah,
hip
it's
tips.
annoying at the start. You know what these tendinopathies are like, annoying at the start, and then it eases and goes numb, and then you just finish the run and hope it's not worse the next time you try and run.
I was going to say, it sort of sounds like our relationship. You're annoying at the start and it sort of got better as we went. And now you just hope it,
Then it's just numb. Then you just numb to it
it
and you
just
just
numb
carry
to
on.
it. That's good to hear, mate. I wish I could easily just duck over to France, but instead I'm going to duck over to New Zealand because it's Ironman New Zealand this weekend, and I'm heading over tomorrow. So we are recording this a little bit earlier, and you have done us the favor of getting us a guest this week because yeah, I will be in New Zealand and trying to record a podcast when you're on the road, and you got to set
Doesn't
this
work.
up.
No matter what, no matter how good intentions you start off with, as soon as you get away from your normal routine, that podcasting goes out the window. But
As
yes,
we
Daniel Bækkegård has come to join us for a chat, and I did an interview with him, and it was really, really interesting. He's always a great bloke to catch up with. He's someone I've got a lot of time for.
It's so weird hearing you talk about in the past tense, knowing that you haven't actually recorded it yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm recording it
It's
tomorrow.
yeah, they're
But you've just
like
ruined the illusion, the
the
smoke and
illusion.
mirrors.
I mean, it's true. I've sorry, I edited that part in from when we had done this earlier. So yeah, that's just the power of it's a weird thing podcasting where you like people probably don't care this, but I mean, we very rarely do. It's often just one take. We rarely take things out, but when you have guests on, sometimes you have to chop and change things, and then you go, oh shit, we didn't say this, so you got to go in and do a little intro. It's like, and I keep teasing it, but my other new podcast that's coming in Jurors. I'm doing a, not a trailer, but I guess an introduction show that I'm recording today, which is sort of like talking about what it is while we're doing it and everything. And then the interviews. So I've done one, I'm doing another one this week. I've confirmed a few more guests, which is exciting. And then I'm going to do, there's many parts to it. And I just realized I'm actually going to have to really work to keep on top of when things go and everything. And yeah, it does get a little bit, confusing, I suppose, the way that yeah, you don't always necessarily record things in the order that the audience hears them, but people don't really care about that. What's going on, mate? Apart from being in France and the hip being a little bit niggly, like where are you in terms of endurance? It is barely what 5 weeks until your marathon. What's
Yeah, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. As long as my hip stays manageable, I'll be fine. I won't be going after a really fast time or anything. I will be looking to just enjoy the day, enjoy going around my favorite race and having on my 40th birthday and having a few drinks in the evening with people I enjoy the company of. And that'll be about it. So it's the hip injury has scuppered my desire to really go as fast as I can. But 40 is the new 30, mate. There's time for that. There's time for that. But I did have a nightmare last night when I was sleeping. I had a nightmare that I was in London on that day, and then I couldn't find the venue that I've booked for the party. And then we got there, and everybody was already drunk, and no one was spending any money. Then people started throwing up, and then I had to give a speech, and I messed the speech up. And yeah, so party related anxiety dream.
I had a marathon nightmare a few weeks ago as well, actually, that until you said that I had sort of not thought about. But I was trying to get to I was starting this marathon, but I hadn't gotten dressed yet, and I had like a bag of stuff. And for whatever reason, I thought about 10 minutes away from the start line, but realizing it was actually more like 30. And then realizing there was no, because in Sydney at the City Marathon, they didn't have a bag drop. You had to put your stuff in the day before because there's obviously, 30,000 people. And just being like, I don't think I'm going to get to the start of this race. I don't actually think I'm going to make it in time. Like, what do I do? And it was quite an anxious filled dream. So yeah, it's no good, mate.
How are you anyway? How's your training going?
Training is really good. Did as I said last week, I did the tests. So Billy had me do 400 flat out, and then in between each was 200 easy. So 400 flat out, 200 flat out, 100 flat out, 50 flat out. And as I've said, I've been swimming terribly, so I wasn't really feeling very optimistic about the test. But I nailed it. I absolutely nailed it. I think I went 5:23, for the 400, which I couldn't believe, which is like what 121 pace. Then I went 235 for the 200, which is what's that 117, 116.5 pace. Then I went 113 for the 100, and then I went 33 for the 50. And I honestly could not. It was like almost like an out of body experience because I was so convinced. I was doing the warm up, struggling to hit 130s. Think, God, this is going to be grim. Then got into it. I just felt super strong. I think maybe because I go to the gym a lot more now, and maybe it's the strength or whatever. I just felt strong, and I think obviously there's pretty good fitness base there because I've been doing a lot of aerobic stuff the last few weeks. So I was just able to maintain it. So that was really really good. I am tired. I've had this is 4 weeks of pretty consistent training for me, which is good, but definitely feeling that fuzz. Got my fitness on Training Peaks back over 100 for the first time in a little while over the weekend as well. So yeah, no, good. All good here. Looking forward to ducking over New Zealand, catching up with Mike Phillips and Joe and a few other people. So and Mike Robinson, I should say. But yeah, that's all good, mate.
How is Joe feeling about the race? How
Yeah,
is he after his biking incident?
yeah, he's good. I think he's yeah. Joe's ability to like not dwell on things is something I'm always so impressed by with Joe. And yeah, from everything I talk, he's in a really good space. He's I think maybe what's got a very realistic approach to this sort of thing. Like he's obviously come through the ringer the last 18 months, so he's not like I'm definitely going to win this or anything. But I think he's like I've done a very good winter of training. I'm in a very good position. It's an early race. Like, he's got really good expectations, and I guess just backing himself to go out there and be able to if he can deliver the result, the numbers are sort of showing it should be a good race. So, I mean, obviously, there's a fair bit riding on the result for Joe in the sense of we need to start the year right and get the confidence back a little bit. So there's probably that pressure, but yeah, like I said, I think Joe's one of his greatest strengths is the ability not to really dwell on that stuff and dwell in it. Like he's very good at. I mean, yeah, it's the more I talk to these pro athletes and understand how their sort of minds work, and again, that's why I'm doing that other podcast. I'm just amazed by the way they do that things because I think so many of us struggle to probably separate the two, and yeah, it's good. So yeah, I think it'll be good. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, it'd be a good weekend. He's a very grounded athlete, like you said.
Yeah, very much. If you want to find out, because it is almost time, what happens in New Zealand and the inside scoop, you can head to patreon.com/talking triathlon because we will be doing a bonus podcast probably next week. It's been about a month since we did the last one. So it's a good way to support the podcast. You get as I said, the bonus show. There's probably 20 of them at this point. I've lost count. You also get the Strava group, the WhatsApp group, which I'll be giving people the on-the-ground tips on race day. And as I said, it sort of supports the podcast, keeps us doing this, pays for our video editor, keeps the fancy lights behind me going. Yeah, patreon.com/talking triathlon. You asked about Ironman New Zealand. Probably, James, that is a good place to start because it is Ironman New Zealand this weekend, the first Ironman of 2025. Let's have a little bit of chat about it because, to be honest, it's a pretty decent start list for a race all the way down in Taupō, New Zealand, so early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, it generally is the first race, isn't it? And it'll be interesting to see where people are. We've been talking a lot about the WTCS with Abu Dhabi coming along and how difficult it was to make predictions before that race because we hadn't collected any data yet. You don't see anyone's form, you don't see where they're at. And this is basically the same thing, isn't it?
Mm.
We're going into this race blind. A lot of athletes have had a winter of training, they've had an off season, and it is going to be enlightening to see where people are at. I'm very much pulling for Joe Skipper. I'm really hoping he has a strong race, but there are others in the mix.
Yeah, and I said I'm not going to read the entire start list because like most Ironmans these days, there's probably half of them that I'm not personally familiar with who they are. But the key names that sort of stood out to me, particularly in the men's race, obviously you got Joe, you've got Mike Phillips. Mike is a two-time winner of the race. Uh, also I think Mike probably didn't have the quite the season he wanted last year either. Not that he had a bad year, but Mike had the fastest Ironman debut for a long time. So, he's a very good athlete. And I think it's been a slightly short build for Mike for this, but again, sort of playing for the longer season and the Pro Series, getting the chance to race a home Ironman is important. I saw Braden Curry's on the start list, and there was a lot of question marks over whether he was or wasn't doing it. So I guess we'll see what form he's in as well. Braden, very much like Joe, I think, has had a rough 12 months. The chasing the Pro Series while also trying to base yourself in New Zealand, I think didn't work super well for Braden. And yeah, I think he needs a big year this year too. So he'll either be, I think, ripping or very early in the season. So that'll be fascinating. And then some of the other names that are of note that I wouldn't have necessarily expected, and I think it's that trying to secure a slot to world champs as early as possible to then focus on other things is Arnaud Guilloux, the French athlete who
Hmm.
did a lot of races last year. Very, very strong, consistent athlete. And then Peter Heinrich. Peter Heinrich's another one I saw on the start list that I sort of was a bit surprised by because Peter has had a fascinating couple of years where, from all accounts, he was almost out, almost completely broke, ready to give up pro triathlon. He had that amazing result at the T100, and that sort of reset him a little bit. And then he was in the T100
Yeah,
last year.
reinvigorated.
Yeah, so he's a very, he's a very good runner. Pete's a very good all-round sort of athlete. So again, depending where he's at, I think he's there coming trying to get that early season slot. So there's gonna be, I think there's gonna be a race. Uh, yeah, so there's some fire in the men's, and then in the women's, the two big names that I spotted were Fenella Langridge and Jocelyn McCauley. Jocelyn's done the race in Taupō, I think, a few times, and then Fenella has been down in New Zealand. I think it feels like she's been down there almost since last year. Basically, moved to New Zealand, her and Billy. So yeah, like there's a lot of little things to pay attention to, and then like I said, it's the second oldest Ironman in the world. It was Ironman Hawaii. And then the first one they did outside of Hawaii was in New Zealand. Originally, I think in Auckland, they moved it to Taupō. But as people would have seen watching the 70.3 Worlds last year, this is a race that the entire town of Taupō support. Like, I've done the 70.3 there in December a few times myself, and it's one of my favorite locations. It's brilliant. It's truly, truly brilliant. And the whole town support, even though, Joe got taken out, allegedly got taken out by a driver who doesn't like it. That's New Zealand. But no, it's truly one of those important races that, we've seen in the past. We've had these big iconic Ironmans and they're sort of diminishing or they're dwindling. I think New Zealand is one that I think should have been the start of the Pro Series, to be honest. I think this is where the Pro Series should kick off every year. But it has always been an important race on the calendar. It's always in March and it's a big one.
Yeah, it'll be a good race weekend. Will it be broadcast?
I do not expect it
No.
will be broadcast because
So it's a follow the tracker jobby.
I'll do like
Get
I'll try
get
to do bits
updates
and
from Tim
pieces.
Ford in the WhatsApp group.
Correct. I'll try to do that as much. I'm going to go for a run and stuff myself while the race is happening. I'm not just going to hang around while they're riding bikes for 4 or 5 hours. But no, it's like it's a lumpy course. The roads are relatively rough. This is not an easy fast Ironman. It is kind of that old school tough one. So, and yeah, it's good. It's really iconic and really, really good. So that's Ironman New Zealand. Look forward to talking about it next week.
You know what's another interesting Ironman that's coming up later this year?
Tell me.
That's the Ironman Nice Men's World Championships later in the year. And Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Eden have been there doing a training camp, and they believe it's going to be an interesting bike ride in the sense that you're going to be allowed to put more power down and allowed to get a gap and not have to have quite as much on the run to maintain for the victory. And did you watch the video that they put out?
I watched, I mean, I don't know, there's that much triathlon content. I watched the video where it was them like having a day of training in Nice, which was maybe a
Yeah.
week ago. It was the one I saw where it was those two, Casper and a younger athlete with them. So they're saying that they think it's gonna break up on the bike and then there's gonna be big gaps for the run.
Yeah, to quote Blumenfeld, he said, I guess we'll see something like that happened in 2023 with Sam just going from the front and then every man for himself trying to stay with him and the stronger riders. There's definitely a lot stronger guys who'll just put power in and don't think it's going to be the sort of course where you can just sit in a group. You definitely have to follow the pace. Patrick Lang, he said, of course, if you're doing the 2:30 marathon, you can maybe catch 5, 10, 15 minutes to the guys in front. But if you're further back, it's going to be very hard to run yourself into a podium. Patrick Lang, who is second, um, 4 minutes behind Laidlow in 2023, he did a 2:32 run, and it wasn't enough to catch Sam, who was putting the hammer down on the bike. You can catch up a little bit, but it's not the same as in Kona. Basically
100% agree.
saying the Kona effect is the ability to blow up on that run and catch up on that run. But in this, Sam tried to do the same thing in Kona, put the hammer down, and then paid for it. Whereas in Nice, you can put the hammer down, get a gap, maintain a gap, and then not get caught on the run.
I think he's 100% correct. I mean, yeah, we saw it happen in the women's race as well last year, where there was definitely the breakup of the fields. The gaps were huge. Cat Matthews was walking, still finished second. Uh, I think the difference between this year and 2 years ago is there's going to be a lot more firepower at the front of the swim. Like there's going to be a lot of those guys who have got the ability to swim bike really well. And not to say they weren't in the past, but I think if you add in athletes like a Martin Van Riel, Christian and Gustav even, like you put these names in there, I think it does definitely change the dynamic. I think the Magnuses, even maybe I just think that there's going to be a very different dynamic to what we saw a couple of years ago. Sam had enough time in transition to put calf socks on, fuck around with that, and then not only ride through, but then ride to the front. I don't think he's going to have that luxury anymore, or if he does, he'll pay for it. I think later on because the margins are getting so small when you start to bring in those different guys.
Agreed. I think we're just going to see people going off the front, and Sam. Sam's going to be one of those people going off front, and we think we're going to see more of a fight to be up the front. We're not
Yeah.
going to see him get away quite as he did. We're just going to see more of a bike race, which alludes to the fact that they can't allow someone to get away.
I think if you're, yeah, look, the secret to this race is if you're not getting off the bike within striking distance of those guys, yeah, it's all over Red Rover very, very early. Like this, yeah, is not a race where even if you're 10 minutes, 15 minutes back, you're not going to be able to make up that time on the run because there's going to be so many people up the road. I think the swim is going to be so important in Nice. I'm very interested to see the way that, like 2 years ago when it was the first time it had happened, and we all sort of like, wow, I didn't expect it to go that way, or some of us did, but like Sam's not going to have the luxury of getting away with that stuff, whether he gives people the opportunity or not. I mean, whether it's true or not, he's been talking about how sick and injured he's been at the start of this year. Does that change things? Does that delay things? Are we even going to see him race South Africa? Uh, I think that Sam and Laidlaw will not have, and it won't be from his performance. I don't think others will let him have the race he had last time again. And then you also put in the fact that there's a certain Norwegian athlete who sort of exploded onto the scene in Nice in 2019, which is Gustav Iden. We saw how good he was at the 70.3 Worlds there. We saw how good he was in Ironman Hawaii a couple of years ago. Put those two together, and obviously, he's had injuries and all these sort of things. But I expect that, yeah, that like even just his presence is going to really change things up. So yeah, it's a fascinating prospect this year, and one I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, same.
Gus, I mean Christian, just quickly, Christian, do you like how do you see him? Obviously, you're the second biggest fan of cycling on this podcast. We've talked about Christian sort of trying to go to pro cycling at one point, talking about his body type, and do you look at Christian, his body shape, that course, and think this is going to be good for him, or do you think it's something that he can overcome, or do you think that the fact that this is a climber's sort of course going to set him back a little bit, or not really matter at all?
It's difficult to say. I don't. I would never underestimate Christian.
Mm.
He's proved me wrong in the past too many times.
Do you know he's
But
won a
if I was,
WTCS world title?
I didn't know that. No, interesting. You mentioned it last week, but I didn't believe you. I had to go and Google it. Um, I just think that if I was taking who it was out of the equation, then my opinion would be, yeah, this isn't going to be a course for him. But he has proved me wrong many times in the past, and he is Christian Blumenfeld, and he's very good at this triathlon business. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was up the front dictating terms and managing to be within striking distance of whoever does lead into T2. But if I had to if I had to stake something on it, then I think it's probably more likely we see Gustav Iden up there. Whether he can finish off the race, I don't know, but we'll see.
I mean, I genuinely think that him just being in the race last year is why we saw the blow ups that we did, is because people, and including Christian, but the psychology of putting him in the race, knowing what he can do across all three sports, changes the dynamic. Like I joked with him after the race in Nice in 2022. I'm like, the reason that Sam won is because you weren't there. And no, like we saw it. We saw Sam sort of. I think I'm convinced, not that I know, but Sam committed so hard to that bike because he didn't want to get into a run race with Christian Blumenfeld. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I think whether he'll like things I'm curious about. Will we see Christian on the same KDX we've seen him in the past? Will he move to maybe one of the Trinities, a lighter model? Are we going to see that innovation we saw a couple of years ago where people were having special bikes built? Are the hills even that big a deal anymore? Or the athletes, there's so much to it. So it's going to be a really,
Mm.
really interesting race in September. I will be on the ground. I believe you'll be on the ground as well. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to going back to Nice and we will talk about it. But you know what we should talk to or about right now, and that is you having a conversation with Danish superstar, friend of the podcast, Daniel Bloody Bækkegård. Should we drop that in and come back in a little while?
let's do it.
We'll be back in a while.
As we've just mentioned on the main show, Tim's fucked off to New Zealand, and I am joined by Daniel Bækkegård from of long course triathlon fame, superstar. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I'm good. And feel sorry about Tim leaving.
He's gonna have a good weekend, mate. He's gonna go and spend time watching Ironman New Zealand and seeing who wins that one.
Nice. It's going to be an exciting race. It's To be honest, I looked at the sign up page on the Ironman website a couple of I think a month ago or so, and it was like Ironman New Zealand was already like capped out, and I was like it's insane to have an Ironman in beginning of March that is already completely full. Like I don't think that's ever happened before in the sport of triathlon.
Were you tempted? Were you tempted to get over there and throw your hat in?
No, no, no.
No,
I'm
you were
That's
just you
another
were
path
just
I'm pursuing. So
we'll get to that then, eh? We'll
yeah,
get
that's
to
a
that.
lot.
So how's things with you? Where in the world are you at the moment, mate?
I'm home. I'm in St. Moritz and just enjoying the winter here. It's Yeah, it's been a nice setting, and to be honest, for the first time in I think ever, I actually feel like I have a place I can call home. Or that made since I moved away from my mom and stepdad. But it's just nice to have a place that is like perfect suited for everything I need, and I'm just taking full advantage of everything, like from yeah, from skiing to cross country. Obviously, doing a whole lot of stuff in the pain cave, and I just love it here.
So you've fully settled in there, eh? Found your
Yeah,
found where you want to call home.
yeah, 100%. It is like the most beautiful place on earth, I think. So it's yeah, I kind of still wake up every morning and pinch myself in the arm that I'm actually able to live here and do what I love the most for a living. That's pretty cool.
It is indeed. How's the off season been? Did you take an off season? How much time did you have off?
Yeah, it was kind of a forced off season. After Hawaii, I was injured. I was injured most of last year, so um, I just took like a month of off completely and reset and began rehab and still doing kind of rehab, trying to get myself back in full fitness, and then that's just been a long journey. But I really like. I struggle a bit with my back the last couple of years, and it's the first time I've had like 2 months of training without having any issues whatsoever with my back. So like high hopes for the season, and
Yeah.
I just want to keep it this way.
And what was it, the injury that you're having rehab on? Was that a back issue or does it go deeper than that?
Nah, it's a back issue.
Okay.
But it's also, it just dictated last year. It was difficult to do the T100 series because, obviously I wanted to do well, and like while I was still injured, and I just made some bad decisions and didn't really listen to my body at all. that my body probably screamed for rest and for recovery, and I was like overruling it with intense sessions and stuff, because there's always a next race coming up quickly after the other. So yeah, it was like I think the only race where I was like going into the race kind of like in a pretty good status was T100 London, and I think that also it went pretty well. So it like I still, it gave me kind of belief that I still have a lot to bring and stuff, but it's not fun to live that way in a such competitive series, and also a series that is really fun to be a part of.
Yeah. I mean, injury management is I know that journey well. The balance between still wanting to go out and train and do the stuff, but also having to ease off and try and make yourself better.
Yeah.
Have you got a handle on it now, do you think? Have you got to the bottom of what was causing that injury? Or have you then having done that, found a course of rehab that kind of works?
Yes to both. We know what's kind of the issue, and also I found something that actually works in terms of rehab, because it's always the case where if you have some niggles or whatever. I think that also goes for like, kind of normal people. Like there's 100 different people who have 100 different
Yeah.
interpretations
Tell
and
me about it.
ideas and what can make it better, and a lot of it, um, obviously if you believe in it, then that also helps quite a lot. But you know it's difficult, especially when you earn a living off your body. Then it's difficult to kind of have a lot of patience in terms of I hope this works
Yeah.
and
And
stuff like
investing
that.
time into it as well. I mean,
Exactly.
I the frustrations I've felt over the last year, 2 years with different injuries that have held me back, amplify that by 1,000 when your living is dependent on it as well, you know? It
Yeah, yeah.
it's I can understand that frustration being much deeper when it is your livelihood that depends on it.
Yeah, and it affects your basically it affects everything, not only your wallet but also your mood and your because you know and at the end of the day, that's also why I started the sport, and why I started swimming back then, was like I love pushing myself and pursuing limits, and that whole high performance aspect is it's always been so fascinating to me. And now I felt like I'm finally at a place where I can pursue those things, and then shit happens, like
Yeah, and stress is
and
a great contributing factor as well, you know. The deeper you get into that injury hole, the more of an impact it has on your training, your racing, your lifestyle, and
yeah.
earning a living, the more stressful it becomes. And then that is sort of then it just goes around in circles, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's also why I'm like, the last couple of months have been fantastic, because I can see like things going in the right direction so quickly, and also just being able to actually just train and be fit, even though it's not like a perfect scenario right now. It's like we make steps in the right direction, and that's one thing I haven't felt this way in a very long time. And I can also see on my body that you mentioned stress. It's also like I've lost, I think, 6 kilos in 2.5 months, and it's not because I've tried to lose it. It's just making. I think my body is just responding well to the training I'm actually doing, because there's not that much stress that goes into repairing of repairing the injuries and stuff like that. So that's also, it's been a huge wow moment, kind of just watching how I look like an athlete now,
Ha!
and I didn't really feel like I did that the last couple of years.
I mean, I don't
Not
think there was any
not
point that
because
any of us outside the sport didn't think you looked like an athlete, mate. But
no, but you still know like I felt like when I obviously weight loss and stuff, that's a big thing in endurance sport, and I felt like I've been very fit, but it's been in a very unhealthy way. Or I've been maybe not fit, but I've lost weight and it's not been in the healthiest way. And now it's like I understand now what it actually takes in terms of recovery and um, nutrition and like all the things on the outside of the performance aspect, what it actually takes to be fit.
yeah, I
And
mean,
I think that just helps immensely.
all it takes is one thing to be out of balance before things start. Everything builds, doesn't it? You know, and when you're out
Exactly.
of balance, it's very easy to for things to compound on top of each other.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So let's talk about 2024. Like you said, you've already mentioned you were injured throughout. You've been fighting this back injury. From the outside looking in, it looked like it was a struggle. You had, what was it, eighth in Miami, the darkest race of all time. And then on the broadcast anyway. And then you had three straight DNFs before the podium in London. And I was there in London when you got your third place, which was your first podium at the T100. And I could see, and as could everybody else watching, the emotion and how important that was to you. What was it that had led to that being such an emotional moment? Was it, not having had the best year? Was it the injury? What brought you there?
For me, it was definitely the injury. Because it's kind of it's strange how the 2024 was like it was the worst year in terms of like obviously performance, like sports wise, professional life. Because it was just um, I lost faith in like I woke basically I woke up every day and it just hurt from when I stepped out the bed, and that's just not fun to live that way. So I lost faith in like if I could actually be on top of the sport, and that's the first time I really had that because always felt like always felt like I can be a part of the absolute elite in the world. So yeah, it's just been a struggle, and then to like finally have that podium was like for myself it was like a huge confidence booster, and like I can actually be a part of this, and I know I was not in like the perfect shape in London either. There was just a couple of good weeks I put together. um so that just gave me like high hopes for the future. um so yeah, it was nice.
What is when you're going through a period like that, when you're having a bit of loss of confidence or a loss of belief, as you said, what's the strategy? Are you able to tell yourself that you'll be back? Or was there a serious worry in your mind that this might be sort of a long-term issue?
I think at first it was like I just told myself it was not really a big deal and stuff. Kind of lied to myself, being naive, and then all of a sudden it was kind of a big deal, and then you're like, yeah, then it takes over of like I didn't really trust the process, to be honest, and I trained too hard in like situations where I should have backed off. I can see that now. Um, and yeah, that's just the difficult part of like I wasn't part of a squad, or I didn't have a coach close, and I wanted it so bad, and I felt like the only thing I could do was like train harder because then I would get in shape.
Something you could try and control, basically.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Because it's difficult when you have things you can't control in terms of your daily life and the training you're doing and the progress and all that stuff. Um, I think, like, to be honest, the thing that helped me the most was actually was my partner. To She moved here in the summer, or she came here from Japan in the summer, and she could see, like, on a daily basis how bad it actually was. And she made me realize, like, obviously it's not ideal, and this is not how it should be. And she said it in a way that didn't hurt me, but it was like I understood all of a sudden that it is more than just sport. And that's difficult when I've grown up in, like, a bit of old-fashioned training surroundings with, like, stupid quotes of pain is just temporary, glory is forever, and you can interpret those quotes in stupid ways when you're like knee deep in the kale. So it was nice to have a person from the out, like, in some way from the normal world, to tell me that this is not how it's supposed to be, and you have to get your stuff sorted, whatever that means.
Get a
And
bit of outside perspective. Someone could see it from the outside. Someone who cared about you, obviously. You know,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
you know, it's very easy that we're all meant to care about ourselves, but it's very difficult to get that perspective sometimes, and it takes someone looking in to see this isn't normal. This is not how you should be waking up every day.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just a big uh, like glimpse into reality, and now it's like that. It's just meant a lot because I've just been a happier person, even though it's not, it's I'm not in in some way I'm not in the shape I've been in February some other years, but that's also quite good because I've also done some stupid things the other years that I'll not go into now, and I know exactly what the plan is, like short term and long term, and that helps me quite a lot with, like, understanding the purpose behind every session and why we have to do certain things, why I have to go to the freaking gym and do rehab and not skip it because I think it's not important and stuff. So
Oh,
it's nice to have a proper perspective on
yeah,
why I
yeah.
do things, and then it also gets way more enjoyable to actually do it. Um,
And it gives you a reason for doing it, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah,
I am very guilty of doing all the prehab and rehab until it feels better. And then I'm like, well, that's fixed now. I can go back to what I was doing. But I
yeah,
finally think in my 39th year on this planet, I've learned my lesson. When you get a message like that from somebody who cares so much about you and has moved all the way there to be with you, and they're saying, look, something needs to change because I can see that this journey's not right, it's not healthy, you're not happy, you're not in a good place. How long does it take for a message like that to soak in? Do you listen immediately, or was it something you had to then go and mull over?
uh, I listened immediately and I got offended.
I can imagine that's
uh,
where my head would go
extreme
as well.
Extremely offended. But then 10 seconds after, I was like, yeah, you're right. And her Philippa's sister got a kid this fall, and I could also see, like, some of my friends have gotten kids, but I've not really, like, I haven't been a big part of their lives because I moved to Switzerland from Denmark, and all of a sudden I could actually see, like, it made left a big impression on me of life is also to be able to actually play with your kids when you get a couple of those or whatever. And yeah,
Or to be able to leave
that was
grandkids
like
up when
that
you're really old.
hit pretty hard, because I've never thought that way about my life. But I think it was really important and really good to actually to see that. Yeah, so offended. Immediately I got offended, but then afterwards I understood the message, and that's partly why I'm motivated to go to the gym and actually be. I would say last year I didn't feel like I was athletic, um, and now I feel like I'm an athlete, and I feel like I'm athletic because I can do stuff that uh, like I can do stuff. I can do movements. I can do other sports. I can do kind of a lot of things that I would not be able to do 1 year ago, based on my physical capabilities, and I think that's really important and something that's also going to help me quite a lot in the sport of triathlon. Maybe not immediately, but long term, definitely. And I think that's also it's just been very really important for me to be challenged and because it's kind of strange how in some way I've obviously it's hard training, but it's also I've done the threshold method for quite a while, and in some way it's like it's kind of a safe way of training because I'm never getting completely over the line in some way. Like I'm not going where it's really not comfortable because you're always kind of there's always a session tomorrow and stuff like that. So you go to like based on the threshold levels, rarely above, and I've been really accustomed to that. And then now I'm doing a lot of, for example, VO2 max work, and I'm doing a lot of ski mountaineering. I'm doing a lot of cross country skiing and all that. And it's like it's other movement patterns, and it's so challenging. And every day I have at least a session that is going to challenge me more than like I can put into words. And I think it's really nice and really important also for people to get challenged in that way because you can kind of it's difficult to say in English, but you can kind of get too comfortable in some way and still believe that like there's going to be a huge development where it's actually pretty good sometimes to get uncomfortable. And yeah, basically, I just came back from a ski mountaineering trip to one of the summits in my backyard, and that's like it's one of the most beautiful sports I've ever tried, because it's just raw nature and you're basically just walking uphill with your skis, and it's so difficult, it's so demanding, and technique like the technique behind it and everything, it's so challenging, and that's also why I love it because I know it's not triathlon, but it's pretty damn hard. And then also you have to make changes. You have to make decisions, even though your heart rate is like 150, 160. You still have to move in another pattern than what you're used to, and I think it's very cool to challenge yourself in that way. And um, we swim, bike, and run for the whole year. I think sometimes it's also pretty good to do something else. And fitness is fitness, no matter how it comes to you. And yeah, I think that's going to help me.
We as triathletes can very much get stuck in that single movement plane going forwards.
Yeah,
We're very, very rarely going sideways or doing something or testing your limits or your full range of motion in a different way. And to be able to do that, like you say, fitness is fitness.
yeah,
And as the same as we get stuck in that forward movement phase, we're in this ecosystem that is multi-sport. and you think you know it all. You think, oh, I know triathlon, and someone from the outside comes in and says, "This isn't normal. This isn't right." And I can relate to that immediate feeling of offense. Like, you don't understand. You don't know what I'm trying to
Mm.
do. You don't get it. But that person knows so much more than we do because they're seeing it sort of as an entirety, including all the rest of life outside of the sport itself. Like you
Yeah.
said, relating to being there for your kids, being able to lift your kids up when your grandkids up when you're 80, 90 years old, and not having just broken down through from religiously following this one doctrine for however long.
Yeah, exactly. So huge wake up call.
Yeah.
But then also definitely a season I also appreciate in some way, because it's, if I didn't get that wake up call, I'd still be in the same like bubble as I've like always been, or been in the last decade. And yeah, that's for that sake, I think it's pretty good to kind of get everything sorted in another way.
Sounds like you're in a good place, mate. Good
Yeah.
things to come for 2025, eh?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So after your pit podium in London, you had a couple of races and then you went to Kona. 34th in Kona, was it?
I
I
don't even know.
watched I watched your post Kona video, and it was a painful watch.
I will try to get me in trouble now.
No, 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 no. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I meant more on a human level, because
Yeah.
I mean we've chatted to each other since late 2020. You've
Yeah.
come a long way in the sport since the foot stomp video, and all the things I've seen you achieve. You were someone I got a lot of time for, and watching the pain that I could feel in that video when you were talking about what it felt to come 34th in Kona and to not have the race you wanted, and there were external factors as well that we won't go into. What was that race weekend like? And was that kind of the race weekend that drew a line under, right, I need to make some changes?
Um, yeah, the obviously the race weekend, that was horrible. I think on a it was not only on an athlete level, it was also on a personal level. It was just a huge low. It was I felt extremely embarrassed of the race. And yeah, that was just, yeah, it was painful.
Yeah.
um, and I think I I chatted to Luke McKenzie, who's one of my biggest idols, and also a very good friend. Um, and I think what I thought immediately was like, nobody understands. But then he also told me that obviously he's done pretty damn well on the Big Island, and every person who've done well there have also had lows. Um, and gave me a couple of examples, and that he's probably right regarding that. Um, and that was nice to like chat to a guy who made it there, and also um, yeah, he basically, for me to have things to change, that was like, I kind of knew it, but it was difficult to realize. And I think for him to like tell me how it looks from the outside, that was like there was a push in the right direction. Um, Also to understand what it actually takes, because obviously the sport is just, it's at a whole other like just since the 2020, it's a whole other sport now compared to what it was when I started doing long, middle and long distance. And for him to like help me from the outside, give a perspective of what it looks like, because you know, obviously you can, as an athlete and also as a person, you can get stuck in like the everyday routines, and you can your own picture of yourself and your surroundings on an everyday basis, but also from a friend or somebody looking from the outside. It's good something to get sometimes to get a perspective of how it looks from the outside, and he gave me that, and what he saw I was probably missing, and that was a huge help in the forward in the decision makings I had to make afterwards. And that helped quite a lot actually. I went on a vacation with my family on Kauai the week after, and I was so hurt, and I was devastated, and I also got sick a couple of days after, and was laying in bed in like the most amazing place on earth, and just basically hated my professional life. And yeah, it was just tough. And there was also I had a chat with my girlfriend, my mom and stepdad, and about how things were, and they also, yeah, they were there and understand what it is, because there's a lot of things you can draw parallels to like normal life and working at a normal job. So it was nice to have a couple of days, even though I was definitely hurting quite a lot, and just to be there with like at a place and enjoying another part of the world with my family, that helped quite a lot with resetting things. And it's difficult when my brain was just going like 120 kilometers an hour, and it was difficult to kind of stop and be present 100%, even though I tried. So yeah, it was a shitty period of my of my professional life, but it's also, at the same time, it's funny how the professional side it was chaos, and on my personal life I've never been better. And also last year it was like it was so nice to, I took the decision of moving to Switzerland, to the Swiss Alps, and I love my life here, and my just every day, even though it hurt doing sessions, and despite of the injury, it was like I love waking up and going for a morning run along the lakes, and watching the mountains, and it's perfect. It's my dream, and
I don't think there's anywhere more beautiful on earth than the Alps, whether it's the French or the Swiss. I stand outside on my terrace and I can see Mont Blanc, and it is just, it's every single morning getting greeted by that view is just something to behold.
exactly. And I think that's also what, like, even though you struggle as an athlete, and you struggle in your professional life, you still have to remember what's going well for you, and I can't complain, not at all. And I'm actually also pretty proud of the decisions I've made of pursuing my dream, not only in sports but also in like where I want to live and how I want to live my life. So it is strange how you can have one part of your life that is just sucks, but another part that is like the best it's ever been, and only continuing to be better. So yeah, as
Sounds
I
like
said, I'm still happy for 24, even though the results were not there. That was just a pretty steep learning curve.
it can be a cruel sport at times, and the weight of expectation is heavy. Certainly
Yeah,
when
but it was also kind of strange because when I started doing the YouTube stuff with Mitch and stuff, it's like people always they think I thought there was more expectations on my side than what actually was. I think and this is not to sound pessimistic or angry or whatever, but you also realize people don't give a shit. Like to be honest, like you put way more expectation on yourself than anybody else will ever do.
that's why I meant by that weight. It comes from you, and that's I was gonna follow that up with, you've achieved some great things in the sport, and there are great things still to come in your future. I'm quite of that. I'm 100% sure, and I think I can speak for everybody within the triathlon landscape that that feeling of embarrassment you felt, that was unfounded. That was purely coming from you. There's nothing to be embarrassed about at that performance in Kona.
Well, I'm happy you say that because it is something I still struggle with because it was hard to handle, and there was a lot to also process. Yeah, but to the future.
To the future. Now, talking about the future, what are you going to do this year, mate? What are you going to do?
Oh, yeah. Um, Actually, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So
Uh,
you haven't committed to one thing or another yet.
no, and I think or I know that's because I am really good at making plans, and I'm really good at obviously getting motivated and thinking ahead of where I am right now, and that led me to being injured. I don't want that again. I want to make the right decisions for myself in terms of like choosing races and um, so I only have run one race, hopefully two in the calendar, or three. Yeah. And that's definitely I'm gonna start my season in Texas. Um, and then hopefully I'll qualify for Nice. That's my big goal this season with 70.3 worlds as well
Yep.
in Marbella. How I'm gonna get there, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna find somewhere to qualify. And obviously, I'm only saying that because like my main goal is to be competitive in the Ironman series. But I also know I would rather make the right decisions in terms of being fit in Nice and Marbella than risking it all like I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's a decision I'm going to make with my coach and my manager, and then like obviously I think everybody have kind of the same plan-ish. If they want to race the Ironman series, then it's probably going to be like Texas, Frankfurt, Nice, Marbella, and then find whatever 70.3 that works with that. Um, Obviously, I would hope to do some T100 events as wildcard as well. That would be cool,
Yeah.
and I would really enjoy it. But we'll see.
That
I just
opportunity.
want to be I just want to be fit and fucking fast again.
Yeah. Find that balance. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about, isn't it? Find that balance. Don't push yourself too hard and do what works for you as
And I think
opposed
that
to
it's
what is expected.
also it's a balance you also have to learn how to navigate in, because now it's like the sport have never been better because we have so many, like we have the T100, the Ironman series, challenge series, like there's basically everything. There's races every weekend you want to do. And I think that it's so good for not only the top of the sport but also the development of the sport, to have that many races. And I had the discussion the other day with my manager of like what actually makes a good season, what makes a successful season, because like it could be a successful season to basically, you saw Patrick last year. Nobody was talking about him in Kona
What a
because he
race
was
he
not,
had, eh?
because he was not crazy. Obviously, he won in Texas, but you know, you forgot about Texas when you reach October.
Yeah.
And I'd call his season pretty successful. And that's what you'll just have to remember sometimes, that you can have seasons where periods of time you're not there, or it can look like you're not there and you're not on the right path, but actually you've just made the right decisions in terms of being there when it actually matters.
Or be where you
And
want to
and
be
in
to get the
and in
best of
our
yourself in the future.
and in our sport where it actually matters, it is the Ironman World Championships.
Yeah. And then the question's bigger than that as well, isn't it? What makes a good season, but also what makes a good athlete? I was talking to India Lee a few weeks ago on the podcast, and she was saying that she has had a realization that she needs to be at home a lot because she likes being at home. She gets the best out of herself. But she followed that up with, I know that's not the most professional approach because, this expectation that an athlete's always traveling or at camps or away from home. But surely the professional approach is doing what works for you, understanding what works for you and doing it. So it's what makes the perfect season, what makes the perfect athlete.
I'm in the complete same boat as India. I've been chasing summer forever, and now it's like I actually do just enjoy being home, and I don't want to go on any camps or whatever, because I feel like this is the perfect place for personal and athletic growth. So I think some often we probably compare ourselves to other athletes in other sports. Obviously, I love watching the classics, for example, in cycling. I think it's just awesome to see people athletes being able to compete in Strade and Roubaix and like all those big classics, and then again being a factor at the Tour, and then again being a factor at maybe the Vuelta or World Championships. And you just have to, we can't race every week, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they have had to run a full marathon after they've ridden their
No.
bikes. So you just have to understand, like, race to your strengths basically, and make yourself as good as possible. And if that makes you win one race, if that makes you podium in one race, that, like, as long as you fulfill your potential at the places or the races where you set yourself the goal, then I think that's going to be a successful season.
And you got the best out of yourself in that moment,
Yeah,
despite not looking like a jet-setting triathlete 24 hours a day on Instagram,
yeah, that's fuck social media.
eh? Well, you talked about doing your YouTube and doing your online content. Do you think how is that going? Do you think that really helps your exposure? Do you think it contributes to that exposure?
Yeah, I can feel obviously there is some exposure. I've To be honest, I don't really know. I think it's cool to get the backing I get from the athletes watching the videos, and I can see now it's some time since I've had the last video, and people are DMing me about if I quit YouTube or whatever. And that's cool because people actually care about it and like to watch the videos. So obviously I'm happy about that. But I also know what if I could choose to do awesome YouTube videos and then win races, I would like win races any day of the week. It is. I think it's a cool thing to be a part of and start, and it's been a fun project with Mitch. But it also cost a lot of money, and it's money I'm not getting back. So it's yeah,
Is it
it's a
more
big
difficult
investment.
now you're in different countries?
Nah, that's more like, yeah, it's a choice, I think.
Yeah.
I think for my side is also I want to focus on getting better and being a better athlete. And there's just I don't have time or energy to have a camera following me all the time. Yeah, like it also takes quite a lot out of you because you have to be on, even though you probably need to be off, if that makes sense. So it's a balance you have to learn how to cope with, and it's fun. It's also challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. I take maybe one Instagram picture a week, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, I'm so that's also, yeah. It's a struggle for the social media because obviously it's important, but I also feel like I think in some way it's taking too much time and also taking over a little bit, where to a point where uh yeah, it's maybe not so healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
Easy. It goes back to what we were saying at the start, doesn't it? With an unhealthy relationship with training and expectations of yourself, and can lead to a dark place.
yeah, 100%.
What do you think about the state of the sport at the moment? You mentioned earlier that from your perspective, it's never looked better. You've got the T100 option, you've got the Pro Series option, you've got the Challenge Series, you've got all these options out there as an athlete. How do you think about the state of the sport from a growth perspective and from making a living for the athletes and making a living and beyond? Do you think that it's in a good place, and or is there any negatives out there at the moment?
I don't think it's ever been better. We just, to be honest, I feel like I'm lucky to live in this generation of athletes where we can actually make a living for ourselves, and um, I think actually the only problem about having so many series to like compete in is the fact that I think if I was to start my 70.3 Ironman full distance journey now, I would really need somebody to guide me through what races to choose, because the series is not for everybody. I know it's cool to race the best in the world, and I feel that way as well.
Hmm.
And I also felt that way when I started the scene. But I think the it's very necessary to take small steps in the beginning, and that's where like the other kind of races in the Ironmans on the Ironman calendar that is not the series or the challenge races and all that. It's so important for athletes to race those races, because it's like giving them putting them right on the spot, and it's development races that is very important for later in their careers. And because of the COVID pandemic, I skipped a couple of those races, where I would wish I had more race experience early on. Um, how to like basically just how to know to get the most out of myself, and the tactical aspect of it, that is going to be very important now when we have huge start lists at basically all races. So
Do you
I
think it's
think
sustainable the way it is at the moment with the amount of options we've got, and also the amount of race, the expectation of the amount of racing that some athletes are expected to do? Do you think it's sustainable?
I think for the absolute top, no. That's where I think actually it's way harder to be the top tier athletes than it is to be the middle tier or lower tier athletes, and that's not meant in any negative way, because expectation to be at the pointy end of the series is so high. For example, Patrick, you see it now. Obviously, um, it's the series that is gonna. I know he's gonna go full in on the World Championships, but there's also a pressure from Ironman, I guess, but also sponsors to be competitive in the series.
Yeah, to be visible.
Where me, for example, obviously I want to be competitive in the series, but I'm not a world champion, so I don't have that quote unquote pressure, if that makes sense. That's again the pressure I put on myself to be
Your
competitive.
pressure's all internal, really, for the minute.
Yeah.
Whereas he's got a lot of personalities pushing on him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that goes for a lot of the, like, basically the past world champions. So for those guys, obviously they also paid better, but there's also, with that there also follows pressure.
Yeah.
Where I think, for as long as you understand how to create a good season, and how to, like, what is success and what is a successful season, then it's sustainable, definitely. And I hope that everybody sees that opportunity, to make the sport bigger and better, and more successful, because we also help each other to make it more professional in terms of sponsorships and stuff. If that's a huge thing I've always thought was, like, horrible, when people take basically sponsorships where it's free stuff, and then, or a discount code or whatever. And I know I've been in the position, so I also know that you have to save money sometimes, but it's just not a favor for the next athlete.
No, it's a race to the
Because
bottom then, isn't it?
exactly. And it's like we have to have higher expectations of not only ourselves but also the partners we're working with. Because otherwise it's always going to be a struggle to make it as a professional athlete.
I think the sport needs to get to a place where there's a rate card, mate. You know, where there is a minimum cost to sponsor a professional triathlete. That's where we need to get to.
Yeah, and also what is a professional triathlete? I think that's also where it's there are some people or some countries where I know it's easier to get a pro card than others, and I think that's where we just have to standardize what kind of level you have to be before you're a professional athlete, because professional is also living from doing what you do. So it's always a tough discussion to have, but it's also necessary, because obviously we want the growth of the sport, and we want it to be more professional, and sometimes it doesn't really go hand in hand. So yeah, it's tough.
Indeed.
But I think if you look at it as with a positive mindset, and if you strive for it and make the right decisions, then I think it's like the perfect time to be a professional athlete.
So, not asking you to comment on anything specific or any specific cases, but we had some dark news today, with a post from Imogen Simmonds saying that she's been provisionally suspended for a doping case. We've obviously had some cases of that in the recent past in the sport. As I said, to reiterate, I don't want you to comment on anything specific. But as an athlete within this ecosystem, how does that knowledge weigh on you? Do you spend time, bandwidth, time that you could be putting mental thought time thinking about what other people are doing, or do you just let that happen and, let the police of the sport do their job?
Um, it's tough. I don't know Imo. I only saw a post with, like, the suspension, so I don't know anything about the case either. It's just my immediate thought was anger, and I'm just sad that we are at that point in the sport. I I've been out training 6 hours today, to try and get my goals, and to try and be a better athlete, a better person. And as we talked about earlier, like, it is what it is. I live on the top of a mountain, and even though it's my dream, it's also a lot of time away from family, and it's a lot of time away from friends and my girlfriend's family and friends. Um, some would call it a sacrifice. Luckily, we don't, because we love it here, but it's tough when you then have athletes doing breaking the rules and uh, destroying our sport. And I think yeah, it's tough to see, and it's yeah. I spent 3 hours cursing about it, because there's basically nothing you can, like, I know there's nothing I can do but do my training, do my absolute best. But it's also tough, and you get into like a dark mindset when you know there's people out there who are cheating and who are taking the easy way. And I think it's fucked up that we have people like that in the sport. And I hope that we are going to get to a point where we can just say one and done, never come back. And I hope we can get to that kind of place. Because it's like every time it happens, and luckily I don't think it's too often. Or I don't hope it's too many people who are doing stuff like that. But it's the same kind of feeling you get of, as you say, it's like a dark, yeah, you get into a dark mindset, and it's just devastating.
Yeah.
Um,
Lack of faith in those around you, undermining
yeah,
what
and
you're trying to achieve.
it's not cool. Imagine, so that was what I thought about. Like, imagine if she went on a training camp with somebody, either in that period of time, or her training partners, her sponsors, like everybody, and like spending time with her every day, and they just didn't know. And that it doesn't matter if it's her or if it's anybody else. Like, I would feel I would feel so bad if I spent time with that person who was cheating, like, for the time we were together or training together and all the sessions. Because, like, it's not only sessions you do together, you're also working towards a dream, and towards goals, and towards peak human performance. And all of a sudden, that like, the other person was not really committed to that dream.
Yeah.
That would be how I felt. And
Yeah, I mean,
I feel sorry for those guys as well.
in this
Because
hypo
obviously it will also shed a light on them. Um, Obviously, her whole she have a coach, and he's coaching, or she's coaching other athletes, and it all goes around. And we are all doing triathlon, and now triathlon have a case. So every triathlete is like, for the normal person, it's like we are all the same in some way. So I think, like, it's fucking disgraceful. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think in this hypothetical, if someone I was associated with was found to be going down that route, then the 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 betrayal of trust would be significant. But also, like you say, that would reflect on the people that you're spending time with, on the people that you put your trust in and your faith in around you. So, hopefully we will find a path to much, much less of this going forward, eh?
Yeah, but you could say the good thing about it is the fact that people are getting tested. So more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, maybe more, maybe a peak and then a decline. We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah,
So, Ironman Texas, mate. That's gonna be your first race.
yeah. It's going to be an exciting one, and I think the start list is going to be pretty epic. So I look forward to that.
When is that? April 27th?
Yeah, around that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's the same weekend as the London Marathon, isn't it?
I have no clue.
Yeah. Well, I do. Well, I hope that goes well for you, mate. Get out there and
Thank you.
find your form and smash it to bits, eh?
I'll do that. I'll do that. Thanks,
And
you.
we are currently either side of the Alps, so if you're ever sitting around in your pipe and slippers and want to meet in the middle for a bike ride, let me know anytime.
Oh, that sounds good.
All right,
That
mate.
sounds good.
Look after
Cool.
yourself and
Yeah,
speak to
you
you
too.
soon.
See you, mate.
What a fantastic chat that was.
The best.
The best.
What you talk to him about, mate? Tell me about it. Again,
All manner of things, all manner of things. But the journey he's been on from
life,
then
universe, and
till
everything.
now. Yeah.
So Daniel
So I mean,
is
look, he's a
not
fascinating
doing.
guy, and I'd love to see him have a really, really strong season.
He's not doing T100. He's committed to the Pro Series this year.
But watching him do the T100 London last year in person and the emotion that he had getting that first podium at the T100 or getting a strong result last year was something to behold because you could see how much came out of him at that race and finally finding some form again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess is probably just an area of interest for me at the moment. But I would love to understand the journey that has been the last sort of, over a year now, because there's been a lot of athletes I think that have been through a weird rough patch recently, and I've said it a million times. I think Daniel Bækkegård is one of the most naturally talented athletes. Like I think so highly of Daniel, and I've always thought that when he really sort of gets everything right, he'll be an absolute world beater. Like genuinely, I know how good he is. I think that yeah, I'd love. I'm not. I'm sure you did an excellent job. People are going to go, yeah. He shut up, Tim. He spoke about all that
Did
stuff
it?
already.
He
So
covered it. Yeah, he has got that natural talent to him, hasn't he? I think he's an all-round world beater. He just needs to tap into it on a very consistent basis to have the season that he deserves.
mm,
Um, and I think that's yet to come, but I do think it is to come.
same, and I hope it does because again, huge fan of Daniel. So yeah, Jimbo, well done. Thank you very much. Easy week for me this week. If
Without a problem.
people want to find out more about Talking Triathlon, where do they need to go?
If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at tford14 on Instagram, and I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. We are on Instagram as at Talking Triathlon. And if you join the Patreon group, you'll get access to the monthly bonus episodes and the social group, and we'll put you in the WhatsApp group. And we're also on YouTube, which is where we like to receive most of our comments and conversations. And if you put a note on there, one of us generally responds pretty quickly.
Correct. YouTube is where it's at. Plus, you get the pleasure of looking at our pretty faces while we do this anyway. Like I said, I'm going to be doing the first, like I guess, introduction to the show today. I've actually got Will McCloy, who's going to be doing those putts with me, which I'm really looking forward to. So I will put that. I'll get that all set up when that channel, and then I might even drop that intro episode into this feed as well, so people want to hear it and understand it. I might do that too, but that's still a few weeks away, I think, at this point. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to New Zealand. I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing how the interview goes with Daniel. James Bale, thank you very much, mate. I'll talk to you later.
Cheerio.